Could we already be witnessing the early stages of World War III? A question that sends a shiver down the spine. Billionaire investor Bill Ackman seems to think so. His ominous warning revolves around the escalating tensions and conflicts across the globe, with a particular emphasis on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Ackman's nightmares of another world war, eerily reminiscent of his premonitions before the COVID-19 pandemic, stem from his belief that we're seeing the early manifestations of Russian President Vladimir Putin's global ambitions. He argues that the West's support for Ukraine is seen by Putin as a declaration of war. Ackman has criticized NATO and the US for acting out of fear of provoking Putin, calling instead for a more assertive stance. He believes the US should stop buying Russian oil, provide more weapons and intelligence to Ukraine, and potentially enforce a no-fly zone if sanctions fail. Adding another layer of complexity, he underscores the critical role China could play in resolving the crisis. As the world grapples with the potential for a third world war, the stakes could not be higher. The world watches with bated breath as these events unfold. The Ukraine crisis has undoubtedly been one of the most significant global conflicts in recent years. It has been a focal point of international attention, as the world watches with bated breath the unfolding drama between Ukraine and Russia. This conflict has seen an aggressive Russia under the leadership of President Vladimir Putin, clashing with a resilient Ukraine, led by President Volodymyr Zelensky. The crisis has not only tested the mettle of these two nations, but has also raised questions about the role of international bodies and alliances, such as NATO, in maintaining global peace. The United States, under the leadership of President Joe Biden, has been caught in the crosshairs of this crisis. While Biden has pledged not to put boots on the ground directly in the conflict, he has been vocal in his support for Ukraine, requesting billions in aid for the beleaguered nation. However, this has drawn criticism from some quarters, with accusations of the U.S. being drawn into foreign conflicts. The crisis has also highlighted the significance of economic warfare in today's world. The call by President Zelensky for an international boycott of Russian oil and the push by the U.S. to stop buying Russian oil are examples of how economic sanctions are being used as weapons in this conflict. Furthermore, this crisis has underscored the role of other major global players like China. While China has not imposed sanctions on Russia, it has expressed a willingness to mediate between the two countries. The involvement of China, with its global economic clout, could potentially tip the scales one way or another. The Ukraine crisis is a stark reminder of how quickly global peace can be disrupted. It serves as a wake-up call to the international community about the importance of diplomatic engagement and economic leverage in resolving conflicts and maintaining peace. This crisis is not just about Ukraine and Russia, it's about the future of global politics and how the world negotiates peace in the face of conflict. The war in Ukraine is not just a global conflict, but also a contentious issue in domestic U.S. politics. The complexities of this war have sparked a fiery debate within America's political parties, with various viewpoints shaping the narrative. A notable voice in this discourse is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. His skeptical stance on the war in Ukraine, viewing it as a mere territorial dispute, has stirred the waters within the Republican Party. DeSantis's comments have not only prompted responses from his potential Republican rivals for the 2024 presidential race, but they have also brought President Joe Biden's support for Ukraine under the spotlight. This divergence of opinion is not confined to the Republican Party alone. It has also highlighted the divide within America's political landscape, with hawks and establishment internationalists on one side, and proponents of the America First approach on the other. Interestingly, DeSantis's stance on Ukraine has found support from Republicans who follow in the tradition of Ronald Reagan, but it has also strained his relationship with former President Donald Trump. The recent drone incident between Russia and the U.S. has further intensified this controversy, with Trump capitalizing on the potential for direct U.S.-Russian clashes to argue that he is the only candidate who can prevent World War III. The war in Ukraine has thus become more than just a global issue. It is a divisive factor in domestic U.S. politics, potentially impacting battlefield strategy and international perceptions of U.S. commitment to Ukraine. While DeSantis argues that the war is a distraction from other national security priorities, other potential Republican candidates, such as Nikki Haley and Mike Pence, have expressed support for Ukraine. As we can see, international conflicts often have far-reaching implications, affecting not just global politics, but also domestic politics. The war in Ukraine is a clear testament to this, demonstrating how a distant conflict can influence the political landscape of a country thousands of miles away, shaping the discourse of an upcoming presidential race. Tensions between the US and China have also been a major source of global conflict in recent years. This clash of superpowers, while economic at its core, often spills over into the political domain, with Taiwan being a prominent flashpoint. The self-ruled democracy of Taiwan has become a symbol of resistance against China's territorial claims. The US, in its commitment to uphold democratic values and interests in the Asia-Pacific region, has extended significant support to Taiwan. This has included high-profile visits, such as that of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, aimed at reinforcing the US's commitment to Taiwan's freedom. Beyond the political arena, the US-China tug-of-war also plays out in the realm of technology. The world's leading chipmaker, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, has found itself ensnared in this global power struggle. TSMC controls more than half of the global market share of made-to-order chips, crucial for various industries from aerospace to military equipment. The US has long viewed its dependency on TSMC as a potential security risk, leading to efforts to bring chip production closer to home. This resulted in convincing TSMC to establish a manufacturing plant in Arizona. On the other hand, China, which relies on TSMC for 70% of its wafer needs, has tried, albeit unsuccessfully, to match TSMC's success in chip production. TSMC's prominence in the global chip market has given Taiwan both economic and political leverage. However, it's unclear whether this alone will be enough to deter future Chinese aggression. The US-China tensions underscore the complex interplay of economic and political interests in today's globalized world. The resolution of these tensions will not only shape the future of US-China relations, but also have profound implications for global peace and security. With all these conflicts and tensions, one might wonder, what does the future hold? In the face of these global crises and rising tensions, there are numerous possible future scenarios. One of these is an unfortunate escalation of conflict, a path that could lead to a new world war. The situation in Ukraine, the rising tensions between the United States and China, and the political landscape within the United States itself, all suggest a potential for increased global conflict. However, this is not the only possible future. There's also the potential for diplomatic resolutions. The role of international cooperation and diplomacy cannot be overstated in these challenging times. The world has seen before how communication, negotiation, and shared commitment to peace can resolve even the most complex conflicts. Consider the Ukraine crisis. While the situation is fraught, there is the potential for a diplomatic solution, one where the international community comes together to mediate and negotiate a peaceful resolution. It's a tall order, but not an impossible one. In the struggle between the United States and China, there is also room for diplomacy. These two global powers have a long history of rivalry, but they also share many common interests. It's a delicate balancing act, but through diplomacy and dialogue, they could find a way to manage their differences and prevent further escalation. The future of the United States political landscape is also uncertain. The current divide over the war in Ukraine could shape the upcoming presidential race. But again, there's a chance for reconciliation and unity. Through open dialogue and mutual respect, the divide could be bridged, leading to a more united and effective response to global issues. In this vast sea of uncertainties, one thing remains clear: the world is interconnected. The actions of one nation can have far-reaching effects on others. International cooperation and diplomacy are key to navigating these troubled waters. Only time will tell what the future holds, but one thing is certain: the world is watching. So, what have we learned from our discussion today? We've delved into the possibility of World War III, a thought that is as sobering as it is ominous. We've explored recent global conflicts and tensions, particularly the Ukraine crisis, a hotspot of international concern. Our journey took us into the heart of the US political landscape, where we found the war in Ukraine to be a contentious issue. The divide over Ukraine runs deep, influencing not only domestic politics, but potentially shaping the outcome of the 2024 presidential race. We also navigated the intricate web of tensions between the US and China, a dance of power that could have far-reaching implications for the global order. In the midst of all this, we mustn't forget the role of domestic politics in international conflicts. The decisions made within the borders of a country can ripple outwards, impacting the international stage in ways that may not be immediately apparent. While the possibility of World War III is a sobering thought, it's important to remember that global peace is a collective responsibility. The actions we take today will shape the world of tomorrow.